Welcome back to another episode of the Archives with Adam and Fab. Today I have one of the most iconic 90s stars that you would see on one of the Saturday morning TV shows. Now, we're not doing a Saturday morning cartoon or TV show. We're actually doing a Saturday morning podcast with David Fielding, the original Zordon.
How's it going?
Hey, good. How about you, David?
I'm all right. I am all right.
How's the weather over there in your area?
Well, we had some pretty good rain last night, but yeah, I mean it's fine. I mean it's weather.
Exactly. We're here over in Seattle, and yeah, I tell you, we're looking at 80-degree weather today. It's not normal for for our area in April. So
right.
Yeah, so I just want to jump in, do a quick little introduction, and then we'll kick it off. So you started in the first season of Power Rangers as Zordon. You're an actor, writer, and producer, and you hold 2 degrees in acting. And then you have done some voice acting in some pretty popular PC games. So
Yeah.
So we could talk Power Rangers all day, but I definitely would love to talk some of your writing. I know you write some books, right?
I do. Yes, I'm in the processes of finishing up a 4-book series. So yeah.
Okay, and what are those about?
The book series is kind of subtitled the Lincoln Bright series. It's a paranormal supernatural series where my lead character, Lincoln Bright, is what I call an attuned. He sees and hears things that other people don't. What you and I would call ghosts, he calls glims. And these glims are the leftover anger and hate of somebody who has passed on. And those glims will start to pick away and eat away at the walls of reality. And they're trying to reach the other side and the entities that live on the other side. And if those entities cross over, then mankind is pretty much screwed. So Lincoln is trying his best to prevent that from happening and also protect a young autistic boy named Petey Marks, who is an attuned like himself, and prevent Petey from being kidnapped by an apocalyptic group of magicians who are trying to help the glims open this gateway for the dead to cross over. So that's what the books are all about. So
Okay. Real quick, I'm going to bring on my co-host. He's running just a couple minutes there behind. This is Nunu, huge Power Ranger fan, and he's just really excited to hop on and chat some Power Rangers as well with us.
You bet.
Now, we were just talking about those books. What was the, how did the inspiration come from for that?
The inspiration that really came out of a short story that I wrote because I was trying to purge some ghosts in my own life. We all have relationships that go sour or issues in our life that kind of hang around and haunt us. And so I was trying to think of a way to sort of talk about that and using the metaphor of ghosts and phantoms, but I didn't want to call them ghosts because there are 100,000 different kinds of ghost stories, and I didn't want it to be the same as anything else. So I was hunting around for a term that I could use to sort of change it and make it a little bit different, and that's when I hit upon the idea of limbs. Yeah, so the inspiration for those stories was about me trying to internally deal with some emotional trauma that I had been carrying around for about a decade. So I was trying to take that burden and put it down by using the power of writing to do that. So that was the inspiration of the books.
There you go. Some people have, the inspiration to write music, and it sounds like you've used your stories in just that books that you've written.
Yeah, I mean, I think every writer at some point they're not, every story that is written is not just generally about the story that you read. There's always something behind it that has spurred the writer or the creator to tell it. And sometimes those are the best stories when you read the story and you're like, oh, that was really great, and then you think about it and you're like, oh wait, it was about this. And then so it's always fun when you can do something like that.
For sure. No, that's always, definitely a great thing. So you've done some voice acting. Obviously, you had a pretty iconic.
Not in a very long while, but yes.
How long would you say it's been?
Oh gosh, 20 years.
Wow.
I think like about a decade ago, we did some voiceovers for a truck commercial that used a lot of the Power Rangers footage and stuff. But I mean, it would be nice to be able to do like a regular voiceover gig, but getting into that business and staying in that business, and it's very hard. I mean, it was hard to break into it when I was doing it, because audio engineers and producers like to use the same people over and over. And but I mean, the industry has changed, and we see a lot of like A-list actors who are doing voiceover work now, and that can be fun to promote the project, but it's also sort of limiting in a way because you hear that person's voice and it sounds like that person. And there are a lot of talented people out there that can do different types of voices that might have been better in that position, but what can you do?
Gotcha. So I do want to chat a little Power Rangers. Obviously, as I mentioned, we grew up watching you as Zordon.
Right.
But Nunu, I actually want to kick it over to you and let you do the honors of asking, being that you are the biggest Power Ranger fan that I know. So I want you to kick it off and pick the subject to talk about.
All right. First of all, I want to say it's an honor to talk to you, an honor to be in the chat room with you. First of all,
honor's mine.
All right. So my first question is, how did you heard about the role, and how did you get the role of Zordon?
I had done my undergraduate college in San Marcos, Texas, at Southwest Texas State University, and I made a lot of friends there. And when I went to the University of Pittsburgh to get my master's degree, a lot of those friends moved out to Los Angeles. So that when I arrived there 3 years later, I had a network of friends that I could. They helped me find an apartment. They helped me get familiar with where I needed to go and what I needed to do. So I really had a nice network of friends, that I could hang out with and not feel like just some nobody from nowhere coming to this big giant city to try to make it in film and TV. And one of the friends that I had made at Southwest Texas was a very talented woman by the name of Stacy Fish, who was working at Saban at the time in their straight-to-video movies that they were doing. She was really into the production side of film and TV. And she called me up about 2 months after I got to LA and said, hey, I'm filming this kids television pilot for the company that I work for, and I think there's a role that you would be really good for. Do you want to come down and audition for it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason why I came to LA.
Yeah.
And so I went down there thinking that it was going to be a cattle call, that there would be like 15,000 other guys. And I would read my lines in front of a camera, and then I would go home and I would never hear anything. But when I got down to the building that afternoon, it turned out it was just me and another guy. And they told us, we're going to cast it tonight, and are you available to film next week? So I understood right away that it was a very sort of unusual situation that, but because I had gone to school for so long, because I had 2 degrees, I was fully prepared to do what they asked me to do. So it was a combination of being in the right place at the right time, but also having the tools in my toolbox to be able to do whatever they needed me to do. So luckily, of the 2 guys that auditioned that day, I was the one that they chose. So
I guess I could say I could relate to, like, it's not auditioning, but more like a job interview, right? So I've had job interviews where they're like, yeah, we got more people to interview. But when they tell you at the end of the day, like I've had some jobs tell me like, hey, you interviewed out of 20 people and you got the job. I mean, I'm sure it's a great feeling, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went home and a couple hours later they called me and said, congratulations, you have the part. This is the day that we're going to film. And so I was like, yeah, great. I got a job here in LA. That's awesome. Because when I was doing my master's degree, I did a lot of improv shows. And when I was living in Los Angeles, I had started to do improv comedy at a place called LA Connection. And I met a lot of people that had been living in LA for 15, 20 years and had never really sort of scored a break. And so here I was 2 months into LA and I've been cast in this show. So I felt very lucky at that point and sort of like was really looking forward to it to becoming something interesting. So
definitely. So, I mean, obviously acting is a huge part of your life and things like that. You went to school for it. You even did, obviously some voice acting. You did some Power Rangers. What made you decide, like, when did it finally hit you that, hey, acting is what I want to do? That's where I'm looking to invest my time.
So when I was growing up, I was really into epic kind of movies or comic books or TV shows, stuff that really sort of explored not the everyday kind of stuff. I wasn't a fan of soap operas. I wasn't a fan of dramatic type movies. I wanted to put on a Roman costume and carry a sword and drive a chariot and fight the Kraken. I wanted to do all those things. And so I kind of realized early on, I could take my comic books and I could perform them in my carport for my parents and make them watch me tell these stories of these comic book characters. And so it was always in my mind that that's kind of what I wanted to do. It took me a while to get there, though, because like a great many people, if you get up on stage in front of a crowd, it can be a little bit frightening or a little bit makes you nervous or whatever. So when they had the opportunity to do that in junior high, I kind of chickened out and said, no, maybe I'll wait. And then when I got to high school, we had a talent contest and all the different clubs that were in high school. I was in the French. I was taking French in high school, and we had a French club. So all the clubs like that would participate in this talent contest. And my friend and I kind of like came up with this sketch idea where we would kind of try to emulate some of the characters that we had seen on TV. And when we walked out on the stage and the whole crowd in the audience roared and was clapping, and I was like, yeah, I kind of think this is what I want to do. So I got bit by the acting bug pretty early and just dove in head first and didn't look back.
So what are some of those roles that you and your friends would reenact? Like, do you have any at the top of your mind that you remember?
Yeah, when we did the talent show, my friend Ron and I did the Czechoslovakian Brothers. That was Dan Aykroyd and Steve Martin on Saturday Night Live. And then when I started actually acting in school, I did a lot of Shakespeare. I did a lot of roles in Shakespeare, Benvolio, stuff like that. And I actually got to do Salieri and Amadeus, which was amazing. I got to play the devil in a couple of shows. So, I mean, it was just really interesting to learn about the craft and all of that kind of thing. I mean, on one hand, I kind of think I went to school too long because I went out to LA really late. Most people, when they go to LA, they're like 21, 22. Mm-hmm. But I didn't go out until I was 29. So my personality was really formed at that point, and my tolerance for bullshit was not as large as it would have been if I'd been 21 or 22, and there was a lot of things that I wasn't going to put up with, and that was a big factor in why I left LA after about a year and a half. I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And at that point, I kind of stopped acting at that point. I thought I had kind of achieved all the things that I had wanted to achieve, and it wasn't really feeding me the way that it used to. My creative impulses and my creative outlet changed at that point, and so I started to concentrate much more on trying to create my own stuff rather than reading the lines of somebody else.
Okay. So we just hit the 30th anniversary of Power Rangers.
Yep.
And unfortunately we didn't see you in there. We didn't see Zordon at all. And I really feel like that was a key person or character that we needed in that special. Did you get to watch it yet?
Oh yeah. I what for whatever reason, the day that it showed up on Netflix, I was up at like 5 a.m. in the morning, so I watched it at that point. So
okay.
And I thought it was really well done. I thought that it sort of brought the series forward, because when you look at the old series, it is rated G with extra cheese. It's kind of corny and that kind of thing. But I mean, they addressed a lot of serious topics. I mean, we talked about the death of Trini, and it was really awesome to hear Barbara Goodson back as Rita. That was so awesome.
Oh yeah.
And it also sort of like brought a subject out that a lot of fans sort of have some very definite feelings about, because at the beginning of the special, or at least in the terms of the special, you'll find out that Billy was trying to bring Zordon back.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans out there are very adamant in the fact that they don't want Zordon to come back, that they feel that it's better if Zordon stays gone, because if you bring him back, it lessens the sacrifice that he made at the end of In Space.
I was thinking it's kind of the same thing in a way.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I mean, it would be great if they did bring him back, in the sense that it would allow me to sort of rejoin the family or whatever. Because my experience on the show was really kind of bittersweet. I mean, I was very much like the character of Zordon in the fact that they only filmed me once, recycled that footage over and over, and never had to pay me for it. And I would only go in to do the voice like every 5 or 6 weeks. So I was never on set with the Rangers. I was never near them. And I didn't see them again for like 20 years. What? So that's the kind of strange thing, because when, as somebody who wasn't involved with the show, if you're watching it, you don't really think about how the thing gets put together, how it gets made. And there are times when the original Rangers were in the command center and they were talking to Zordon, but I was nowhere near them. They were talking to a tennis ball that was pasted up on the wall, and some PA was over on the side that was reading the lines that did not sound anything like me.
Wow.
So it would be interesting to think about, how could they bring Zordon back? Why would Zordon come back? Would Zordon come back? I mean, would he have reprimanded Billy for trying to bring him back? Because, again, he made that sacrifice because he wanted to sort of put an end to the, and at the end of In Space, I think that was where they were going to sort of like tie it off. They were like, okay, this is going to be the saga and then it'll be done. But because the show was so popular, because Sentai in Japan continues to be produced and to grow, and there's so many other stories that can be produced, I think Disney, when they bought the property from Saban, were like, well, no, we're going to keep this going because there are more stories you can tell, and they're still producing it today. So that's, it's very popular, and being a part of it, being there at the beginning is really something special and something that I'm proud of. And it's very humbling to be able to meet people from all over the world and talk about something that we all have in common, which is this crazy little show about kids in spandex beating up giant rubber monsters. It's pretty awesome. So
I sat my girlfriend down the other night and we watched the 30th anniversary special. I was like, you don't understand. This is iconic to me, you know? And because she never watched the originals. We watched the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. And she just said, you know, she brought up, she's like, where are these teenagers' parents at? You know, like, where are the parents at throughout all of this? I'm like, you know what? I've been sitting here all these years and I never thought about that. You know?
Well, what's interesting to me is like
there was an episode when the parents did come. It was like a parents like conference episode, I think, but they all get kidnapped, and that's the only time you see the parent.
Really?
Yeah. What's interesting to me is like, you know, Zordon asks Alpha to teleport him, you know, humans with attitude, and they all 5 get chosen from the very same place. It's not like they're chosen from different countries at, you know, different locations. They all come from Ernie's Juice Bar in Angel Grove. So, I mean, you know, you have to sort of suspend your disbelief and imagine that, oh yeah, you know, these are the guys that were chosen or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I find it very interesting that so many fans dig and they drill so deep into the details, and some of those details really aren't there. It's just what they want to believe.
Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating. It's so interesting. And it's not just Power Rangers. I mean, Star Wars fans are that way. You know, they all have their idea in their head that this is what's true about this franchise. And, you know, it doesn't matter that you present them with physical evidence. They're like, that I don't believe that. You know, this is what I want to believe. So, and you know, people are still to this day. I mean, on Twitter, they're dissecting the 30th anniversary special and wondering why this choice was made. Why wasn't this done this way? And it's just very interesting how human beings try to pick things apart in order to try to understand them and make them special or whatever. So it's a very fascinating thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed acting as a craft, because you really have to delve into the psychological issues of why would a person make this choice? Why would this person say this dialogue, you know? And there wasn't anything that deep on the show that we did. I mean, it was all very sort of basic stuff, but and it's pretty obvious from the way the episodes come together that they didn't really have a plan for where the first episode was going to be and where the last episode was going to be. It wasn't like they had a Kevin Feige there with a 10-year plan saying we're going to start here, we're going to end here. Had they done that, you know, I think they might have made a lot of different choices. Because again, the show really isn't that deep. And I, you know, on one hand, you know, we're older, we're 30 years older, and 5-year-olds really don't think about that. When they're watching the show, they just enjoy things that are fast, that are bright, that are colorful, and people who are doing high kicks and then, you know, then all of a sudden they jump into the cockpit of this giant robot and they're running around and smashing buildings and so yeah.
I don't know about you, but we, myself and Nunu, we went to go see the newest Power Rangers, the one made by Lionsgate, and
2017.
Yeah. Did you actually see that one?
I did. Yeah, it was very interesting sitting in the audience and hearing the name Zordon over and over, and nobody was looking at it.
Yeah, no, it was you know, it was really good. It's kind of like that Kevin Feige thing, you know, the plan. I feel like they could have made that movie into something if they really had a game plan.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that I really, really enjoyed about the movie, and then there are a lot of things that I was like, you know, why did they make that choice? You know, I think they really got to the heart of what Power Rangers was all about, which is these kids come together and say, I'm here for you, you're here for me, we're going to stand up to this thing. And when they finally do morph and the music kicks in, you got that thrill in your stomach of like, oh, it's Power Rangers. But Austin St. John and I agree that the Zords were way too small. That I missed my Goldar. I wanted my big golden monkey. And I thought Elizabeth Banks as Rita was fabulous. She was mean and evil and nasty, and I do think that they missed an opportunity to include a lot more of the original characters. I mean, I think they wasted Amy and Tommy, Amy Jo and JDF in that wordless cameo. Yeah, the cameo at the end where they're just taking pictures and stuff. Even in the deleted scenes when you see them in the Dunkin' Donuts smiling at the girls,
I know that donut.
yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of wasted. And Karen Ashley could have been Billy's mom. I mean, I could have been the owner of the Krispy Kreme, just sweeping up in there, or whatever. But again, why were those decisions made? What studio head said, no, we want to save money, or we want to do this, or it's a really tough thing to sort of like address fan service and then also stay true to the story that you want to tell. So and I think Simon Bennett, who's like the producer director on the current seasons of Power Rangers, who directed the 30th special, he gets a lot of he's very good about answering questions and stuff for fans, but he also takes a lot of guff from people who are not involved with it but feel very strongly in a certain way, whether it's wrong or not. I mean, we live in an age where the access we have to certain people is probably too much sometimes, and the level of respect kind of goes out the window when you're talking to people on the internet, because it's kind of easy to hide behind your keyboard and say awful things about people you don't know. And it would be nice to be able to get rid of that, but I don't think it's going away, because people are people. But I just tried to stay true to who I am and try to be as present as I can for people when we talk. So try to be as honest as I can and upfront as I can, and not delve into all the ugly stuff that can happen out there.
For sure. Yeah, no, they definitely like you said, missed a lot of opportunities on that movie. I mean, they set us up for Tommy Oliver at the end, for goodness sake. It would have been interesting to see if they brought Tommy on as a female. I wonder how the fandom would have reacted to that.
There was a speculation of that. I remember it was like a rumor.
Yeah.
Around the time that it was planned for a sequel, that I was hoping it was going to be a sequel.
Yeah.
That it was going to be a female, but then again, the sequel didn't happen. So.
Right.
And then, I mean, it could have worked with, Tommy Oliver being a woman, right? Because they're in high school. They circulate that around high school a lot. And then,
I mean, if Tommy is spelled Tommi, I mean, it
or IE.
Yeah. Whatever. I mean, again, that's the sort of great thing about these, the concept that's been around for 50 years or more, the idea that there are parallel dimensions, that there's a multiverse of stories where it's the same characters, they just look a little bit different, they act a little bit different, and people are aware of that and they accept that. So being able to tell those stories, I mean, I look at the comics that Boom Studios has done, the Kyle Higgins and Ryan Parrott and Misty Flores are doing. There are some amazing stories going on there. Great story. I think if you really want to bring the fans together and to sort of like give them some of the things that they're really looking for, just do an animated version of those comic books and then bring some of the original people back to do the voices. I think that would be the best way to sort of like marry that. I want the fan service, but I also want something that's new, and bring those things together, and you'd be able to do some like really fantastic action sequences without actually having to build a set that you have to blow up. I mean, you know, it's hard to animate stuff like that. I understand that, but I think that would be sort of like one of the really cost-effective ways to do it. But
definitely. I kind of want to get into some like Q&A. I elected obviously my buddy Nunu here, and other friends and family through social networking. Just asked them, hey, do you have any questions for David Fielding? Nunu, do you want to kick it off? I know you got some good questions, man.
I do. I mean, you kind of answered some of my questions earlier, because I was going to ask you how involved were you into the Power Rangers from Mighty Morphin to in space, but you kind of like answer that for me yourself.
Yeah, I really wasn't involved in all. I mean, the only instruction I was ever given during the audition was like, you're a 10,000-year-old wizard trapped in a time warp. Go. So there was no really sort of exploration of the character's background. There was no there was never any talk or hint about bringing Zordon outside of the power tube to have him do anything. And I think that's one of the things that's very interesting about the character, is that if you look at other fictional superhero teams, at some point their mentor will join them. Professor X will join the X-Men. Splinter will help the Ninja Turtles, that kind of thing. Zordon can't. He is absolutely frozen in the place. I mean, so he can't step in front of the Rangers and say, I'll take this part of the battle for you. And I think that's a really important message for young children, in the fact that it's very important to have somebody in your life who's going to stand behind you and say, I believe in you. You can do this. And I think that was like one of the really sort of possibly accidental parts about Zordon that may not have been there from the get-go, but which has become very evident the more you watch it, is that Zordon is that sort of positive force that's behind you saying, you've got this, you can do this. And that's a very important part of what the Power Rangers is all about. So, yeah.
I mean, I think, and the only time I think we've seen Zordon out of that tube was in the movie,
that's going to be my next question too.
yeah. The only time we've seen him is in that movie when the tube gets broken by Ivan Ooze, and he's just laying there basically dying. Like, he needed that tube to survive, to breathe, everything. So Nuno, do you have anything else?
Yes. So how was it watching yourself for the first time on television? And did you keep up with the series all the way to the end, or?
I remember being over at a friend's house really early on a Saturday morning, August 28th, 1993. And because I had got a chance to see the original pilot, where Zordon looks like a big green blob of Jello, and was kind of like, oh, this kind of not really happy with that. But after they changed the effects and it was very clearly my face and my voice, and to see my name come across at the front of the credits, I was like, wow, I'm at the top of the show. And so that was really kind of like a big thrill. It was something that I had wanted since I was like 9 years old. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay. So I do have a couple questions from some other folks here. So my buddy Adrian, he actually asked, he said, how were you presented with the role? And what did you think when you first read the script? So you really kind of answered the presented part.
I mean, the information that I was given about Zordon was very bare bones. You're a 10,000-year-old wizard. You're trapped in a time warp. But when they explained what the show was all about, I got it right away because I grew up watching Ultraman. I grew up watching Battle for the Planets. I had watched a number of Japanese shows that they had brought over that I had watched on after school cartoons or on Saturday morning cartoons. So I was very understanding of the concept of a superhero that would grow to be 90 feet tall and would fight a big giant monster, and nothing was cooler to me than that. I was a huge kaiju fan. I loved Gamera. I loved Godzilla. So to be a part of a show that was being filmed in Japan and then brought over here that also had like superheroes and a big giant samurai looking robot, I thought that's fantastic. Yeah, let's do that. So I got that right away. And the fact that it was had to do with dinosaurs. I was a huge fan of dinosaurs growing up. The Triceratops was my favorite dinosaur. Earlier in the year, Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park came out, and I still can hear that T-Rex roar in my ears. And so to be in a show that had a T-Rex and a Triceratops and giant robot, sign me up.
Okay. Did you know who the other person that auditioned with you? I mean, I know you
I did
mentioned
not. I met him that one day and never saw him again. And it was very interesting to be in that room because they separated us into, he went to one corner and I went to another to sort of like read over the speech that we were going to do, which is basically the speech that happens in Day of the Dumpster, where Zordon introduces himself, tells them about becoming Power Rangers, wants to give them the power coins and stuff. And I could hear him over in the other corner doing sort of like this mad scientist version of Zordon, where he'd be like, "Power Rangers, welcome to the command center." And I was like, I really don't think that's the way to go. I had grown up reading comic books. I was a huge fan of Greek myth and mythological stuff, and I really felt that Zordon was this very wise sage, this wizard up on a mountain, this kind of Zeus-like figure, that he would have a much more deeper, commanding tone. And so that other gentleman went in first and was in with the audition for about 20-25 minutes, and then he left, and then I went in, and the voice and the tone that I used for the character was the one that they ended up using in the show. So I guess I made the right choice.
There you go. So how was he also asked, how was like shooting process? I mean, obviously back at that time before we had really like high depth cameras and things like that.
There was no motion capture. There was no gray suit with the little balls all over me. It was very bare bones, very much like you see me now with a big green screen behind me. That's what I had. They had painted it was in some out of the way warehouse. It seemed really kind of janky when we were doing it. Mm-hmm. It was some out of the warehouse in Studio City, I think, and it was the last day of shooting. They had been shooting this pilot for about 4 weeks, and it was the last day. The director and most of the crew were sick, so they were separated from me by like 50 feet. And I arrived at the warehouse at the appropriate time. They took me into makeup. They told me they were going to shave all of my hair off, and they did that. I was shaved bald. They darkened my eyebrows and glued my ears back and slathered me with green paint up to the neck. And then they took me out into the middle of this big empty warehouse and sat me in like my memory of it is like it's a barber chair. It was like one of those big chairs that sat up, and there was this big green screen behind me, and then there was just nothing but bright lights. And I had met the original cast when I did the audition, and they were there that day because they had to read lines back and forth with me, but they were all in shadow. And that was the last time I saw them for 20 years. But we filmed for a good while, 3 or 4 hours, and they made me do a bunch of takes, a lot of different faces, and Because if you remember in the show, I mean, Zordon's pretty much straight on for the first 60 episodes or so, but they were, as the technology improved over the years, they were able to take that footage and, you can change it so you can see the side of Zordon's face, you can see under. So it was really kind of cool to be able to do that, but also very disappointing to be told a couple of weeks later that when the show got picked up, that they weren't going to film the character ever again, that they were just going to use that footage and I would just come in and do voices. So that was kind of disappointing. But again, I didn't get the sort of Hollywood experience that I really wanted. I wanted to be on set every day with the guys. I wanted to understand what it was like to film 16-hour days and sort of feel like I was a part of the production. I didn't feel like I was a part of it. So it's very strange to be a part of something that is so recognized in pop culture, but yet at the same time, you don't feel like you're really part of it. So very strange. Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I'm not sure if you know the EA Sports voice guy. Have you ever heard of him? The EA Sports, it's in the game. Mm-hmm. Oh, he recorded his voice for them for EA Sports, and all these years he hasn't been getting paid for it. He actually lent his voice, and they said, "Hey, we'll give you a trip to EA Canada, if you come out and just do the voice." And now they're just
that's the sort of like I hate to say it, it's kind of like the norm because Power Rangers was a non-union show when they filmed it. It stayed non-union for the longest time. It's still filmed in New Zealand because New Zealand is non-union. They can do that, and so I'm not a huge money person. I don't worship wealth. I think it's it's a necessity that society has decided this is what we use to exchange goods and services, and I get that, but I don't want to be a millionaire. I think that would be like more money, more problems kind of thing. And but at the same time, I do think that people need to be compensated for what they're worth, and exactly. I hate the idea that somebody who did that iconic line, it's in, just kind of gets the door shut in their face and say, thanks a lot. Yeah. And but you hear that kind of story all the time. It happens all the time. So
yeah, it's funny you said that because when me and my girlfriend we watched the 30th anniversary, because I seen it the day it came out, and me and her we watched it Friday. And she kind of asked me, like, okay, why aren't some of the originals back? I was just like, well, some kind of complicated issues. Tommy, he didn't want to be, well, JDF, he didn't want to be in it. ASJ had, like, arrest issues and stuff like that. Yeah. And then I explained to her, she was like, well, why did they leave? Because she was like, hold on, that's not Jason. Hold on, that's not Kimberly. Who's that? I was like, oh, yeah, they got replaced. She was like, why did they get replaced? I was like, well, in the show, they went to a conference in a whole different country, but in real life, I had to explain to her, well, they was trying to go union because it wasn't union during the show. I watched like a podcast where Austin St. John kind of explained his side of the story. Then
imagine how different the show would have been had they agreed to what Walter and Austin and Twee were asking for. Because it wasn't just the actors that were asking for more money. They wanted the crew to be paid well too. Yeah. Because the crew was non-union. Everybody on the show was working on a non-union rate. They were doing 80-hour weeks, sometimes in dangerous conditions. And one of the reasons you want to be in the union is because if you get hurt, then you have health insurance. You have a way to sort of like get compensated, if you're not working and they just wanted to feel that, again, they were being paid what they were worth and they were being taken care of. And had the show gone union, had the show kept the original cast, Austin and Walter and Twee would have been in the 1995 movie. It would have been a different story. It would have been a different, in some other world, in some other version of our reality, that happens. And you have to wonder, well, how did, what did the show did? They would have brought me in for the movie, that, how would that have worked out? And, in some other world, some other better place, those kind of things took place, and those guys are living a different reality than we are. So interesting, very interesting.
Definitely. So we're going to wrap up with just a couple more questions, and then just ask you for a little word of advice, if you don't mind, and
sure.
We'll finish up with that way. So my mom, she asked, and you kind of answered a little bit when you went to go see the Lionsgate Power Rangers movie, but she said, "Do you get recognized in public at all?"
I get recognized at conventions when I'm sitting at the table or whatever. When I went to New York Comic-Con 4 years ago, somebody yelled my name out on the street. I'm like, I'm in the middle of New York. Who the heck knows who I am? But again, it was in the bubble of the convention. So, but if I walk around now, if I go to some city and just walk around, nobody knows who I am. So yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm a nobody. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely a somebody to a lot of us Ranger fans, right? So
yeah,
I'm sure somebody.
Well, I mean, there's real benefit to being, having anonymity and being able to go where I want, being able to shop for groceries and not get,
bombarded.
Yeah. So.
All right. So my buddy Joe, he said, "Did you have to alter your voice, and did you have a favorite line from the show?"
I altered my voice in the fact that I tried to speak in the lowest register that I have. So Power Rangers, I would try to get that deep, and I think they might have added some electronic fuzz or echo to the voice. At the Power Morphicon in 2018, Kyle Higgins had arranged for a number of us to do a live reading of the Shattered Grid comic book story, and to me, that's one of the highlights of doing conventions, of playing the character that I've ever had, because the audience reaction to that live read was fantastic. You can watch it; it's out there on YouTube. But Kyle had arranged for my microphone to be hooked into the same kind of sound effect that they had on the show, with the echo and the booming quality of it. But nobody else knew that on the panel. So the first time that I spoke as Zordon in that voice, it lit the room up with electricity. Peter Adrian, who was sitting next to me, just kind of like jumped out of his chair and said, "Oh my gosh, it's Zordon!"
Hey, I would have too.
So I mean, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Okay. My cousin Casey asked. He said they brought Lord Zed back, so let's give Zordon a shot. He said, "What Power Rangers color would Zordon be if he was given a second run?"
That's a very complex question, right? Because again, how are fans going to want Zordon to be representative? I mean, do they want Zordon to just be the floating head that they know and love, or do they want to see what Zordon is like outside of that? And again, it's one of those sort of like fan debates. You're going to get people coming down on both sides, and they're going to throw virtual punches about this is right and that's not right and blah blah blah. People always ask me who's my favorite Ranger, what's my favorite Ranger color. I don't have one. I think all of the Rangers are awesome. I'm kind of partial to Billy because I kind of grew up like him. I had glasses growing up. I was kind of nerdy. I loved to read books. I was into that kind of thing. And he had the Triceratops. So, I mean, he had the best dinosaur. And I mean, is the Phantom Ranger Zordon's son? Could Zordon come back as the Phantom Ranger? Who knows? Silver's a great color. I mean, personally, myself, gray is my favorite color because I like how it just encompasses all the others. So I would like to think that if Zordon come back, it would be some sort of like silvery blue kind of color. That would be awesome. But who knows? We would have to actually look and how would it work from a story perspective? What are the reasons for Zordon coming back? Why would they come back? And the big question is, would Zordon really want to come back? So yeah,
for sure. So I'll ask you a couple more questions, maybe 3 here, and then we'll go from there. So my buddy Don, he said, "Is there a memory that sticks out as your favorite memory from the original seasons?"
My favorite memory is also it's from the first episode. It's when Zordon offers these teenagers a chance to take on the mantle of the hero, to stand up to defend people that can't defend themselves. And there's a real quick moment if you watch the episode where Walter and Kim and David and Twee are like, I don't know if this is for us, and they kind of like want to leave. Jason stays. Jason is looking at Zordon, and he's actually considering, I think we should do this. And I think that's a very telling moment for Jason's character and why Jason was the original leader of the Power Rangers, because I think he understood the stakes. He understood the sacrifice it would need to do that. And then, of course, when they do make the change, he's the first one to say, let's do these things, and they bring him out. So I think that's my favorite moment, my favorite memory of being on the show.
Okay. My buddy Jeff asked, go ahead, Noon.
I do have I want to get. I want to ask him a question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think he was part of this filming project that was planned on doing years ago. I think around 2016, but never came out. I think it was called like The Order. I think he was part of it. Where all the Ranger cast about to come together. It was like a whole different movie. Was the filming ever done? And is there any news about that or?
No, the filming was never done because the union stepped in and shut it down. There were some issues with the trailer that we filmed where some actors did it without SAG approval, and so they really came down hard on Karen and her production company, and it was heartbreaking for us because we were really hoping that it would take off, and Karen was in tears telling everybody that it had to shut down. And we tried to keep it as live as long as we can. I think Karen is still trying to get some version of it made. She's been talking to some people in Atlanta, but she would be the person to talk to about what the state of that project is. I mean, she and I worked on that script together for over a year and a half, trying to put together, rewriting it, writing it, rewriting it. And, we had really put our sort of heart into the whole thing, and so both of us were very devastated when it shut down. So
yeah, the trailer looked real good. I was like, I can't wait for this to come out. I know at one point people were like donating to put money into it or something like that.
Yeah,
like, okay.
I mean, I haven't seen the trailer in a long time, but every time I watch it, I still get goosebumps.
Right, I still watch it to this day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh well, again, one of those things like it could have been, but
Yeah. So my buddy Jeff, he asked if you could change the character in any way, how would you have and why?
If I could change Zordon in any way, I think it would be interesting if we had been able to see where Zordon actually was, because he is trapped in this time warp. He is projecting his presence into this power chamber so that he can communicate to this dimension of reality. Where exactly was Zordon in time and space? I mean, I think that would be very interesting to explore, but they weren't going to address anything like that with the budget that they had back in 1993. So I don't think I would change anything about Zordon. I think Zordon is in one sense, he's a very pure character because he doesn't alter his ultimate goal, which is like, we need to defend this reality from the evil that comes in. And again, I think that's a nice lesson for 5-year-olds is like, know who you are, stick to who you are and that kind of thing. So I'm not really sure I would change anything about Zordon.
For sure. So, Nunu, before I end this here, is there anything else you want to say or just ask real quick?
I do want to ask. So, I know, like a couple months ago, JDF had passed away. I was wanting to ask you, how did you get the news, and what was your reaction? And also, what was your reaction when you heard that Twee also passed away, also, and where were you?
Because of the way that the show played out in 1993, I didn't meet JDF, and I didn't meet Twee, so I never knew Twee. And I didn't meet JDF for like 23 years.
Oh, wow.
We met at a convention, I want to say 2016, something like that. So I didn't hear about Twee's passing until much later. Like, I think it was like 2011, 10 years after she passed. I had no idea. And last November, Austin St. John and I were at a convention in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we had gone to dinner. And before we got to the restaurant, Austin got a phone call in the car, and he kind of was like, what? Oh my God, what? And I didn't know what was going on. But at some point during the dinner, he pulled me aside and told me what was going on. And both of us were just sort of floored. We had no idea. And it was, I mean, still to this day, I really don't have words.
Yeah.
It's very hard to, because JDF was so good with the fans, because JDF was always on the road. He was always out somewhere. He was always interacting, and he was the last fan standing kind of guy. He would be there for hours just talking and meeting with people. And so a very complex person, and you never really know what's going on with somebody, what's going on in their head, how they're feeling. JDF had dealt with suicide twice before in his family, and all of us at some point have like a little nugget of darkness, and sometimes it takes over. And in some other world, in some better world, both Twee and JDF are still with us, and the 30th anniversary special would have been freaking amazing, but it's very, very strange knowing that JDF's not out there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, personally, even I don't know. I'm not a big JDF fan. I'm more of an ASJ fan. And like when I saw the news, no, this ain't right. And then I was just like, this is not true. And then when they finally confirmed it, I'm like, man, like I know it's been time to have my certain opinion of him, how they presented him in the show, because I feel like it's weird when he came on, they kind of made him like the forefront over Jason, over everybody else. I'm just like, okay. And then like now seeing him, only thing I want to take away from him, that he loves his fans. Like he loves his fans very, very much. And then for this to come out, I'm just like, man, like, it just kind of breaks me. I'm just like, okay. So yeah.
All right, so we'll end it out with a question here. Like, we always ask for like advice, right? So since you were a mentor to many of our childhood heroes, the Power Rangers, if you could give the new generation, which is obviously times have changed a lot, if you could give the new generation of kids of advice for mentorship, what would it be?
Be kind. Be patient. Listen to what people are saying. it's very important that people learn how to communicate in a very open way. So it's very important that when you're communicating with people that you listen, that you understand what it is that they're trying to get across. You may disagree with them. You may feel that, you know, their viewpoint is wrong, but they're not living your life. You have to sort of try to take everybody as an individual. Don't lump everybody into a group and say, you know, those are bad people over there, or try not to. I mean, judge everybody on their actions, not just as what on they say, because people can talk a lot of crap, but they're also not doing anything about it either. Just be kind, you know, be open, listen to what people are saying, and sort of think about your answer before you blurt anything out. I mean, it's too easy to get drawn into arguments these days with people that you don't know, that you are not familiar with their circumstances. You don't know what they're going through. And then there are some people out there who are just instigators who want to talk crap because they know it's going to upset somebody. Protect your peace. Don't interact with those people. Be kind to people. Be kind to yourself. You know, I think that's the best thing. If you're kind to yourself, you're going to be able to treat other people with kindness. So I think that's the best advice I can give to people.
For sure. No, I definitely appreciate that. Before I let you go, can you close it out with maybe your Zordon voice for us?
Power Rangers, teleport to the command center immediately. Rita's escaped.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate it. There everybody goes. We had David Fielding on, and it was wonderful. We appreciate all the time, and hopefully chat in the future.
Okay.
All right.
Great to be
Have
here.
a great weekend. All right.
You
Take
too.
care.